Hello everybody, here we are today talking about three NHL teams that are off to the wrong start for the season and seeing if they can get things turned around. So before we get started with that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So the NHL season is still very early, but I do think for a lot of teams they wish that they could get a couple games back and maybe even hit the reset button. But I think in the case of three teams in particular, they are really wondering why things are going wrong and if they can get things turned around very quick. So we're going to go in alphabetical order here. The first team we're going to be talking about is the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado won the Stanley Cup in 2022, made the playoffs last year, was in contention for winning their division, but here they are now, winless to their first two games, and those two losses were particularly bad. An 8-4 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights, a team that they've met before in the playoffs and lost to, and then a loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets 6-4. That one in my eyes was honestly worse because Columbus shouldn't be in a spot where they could be competing with the Avs. And if Colorado scores 4 goals in that game, there's no way that the Blue Jackets should go out and score 5 to win it. So for that, of course, there's a lot of things that are concerning. Primarily, Alexander Georgiev is struggling yet again. He has allowed, I believe, 8 goals on 25 shots this season, with him being, again, probably expected starter as he's on the final year of his deal. And in many, many ways, I do think that Avalanche fans are kind of wondering if this is going to be the beginning of the end for what they've been able to do in recent years. But at the same time, I don't think this season is done by them any means. You look at the fact that their next 8 games feature 6 non-playoff teams from last year. They're probably going to be okay, but of course, some of these losses, if they lose during this stretch, could be kind of an indicator that maybe this year really is way worse than what we expected. And then you have the Edmonton Oilers, a team that were the Western Conference champions from last year. They are a side that is at the bottom of the NHL standings at the moment. That is weird. They've had a lot of bad losses in this time. Of course, they have a 6-0 loss to the Winnipeg Jets, a 5-2 loss to the rebuilding Chicago Blackhawks. Mind you, Peter Mrazek stopped something like 36 of 38 shots in that game. And then a loss to their friends, if you want to call them that, the Calgary Flames in Alberta, 4-1. All of these things are, again, kind of bad. In a weird way, Edmonton looks better than what the scores might say, but at the same time, too, you're kind of looking at a guy like Stuart Skinner and seeing kind of the same old story that we've seen before with Stuart, where he can have really bad stretches and hold the team back. He and Georgiev are kind of interesting because they kind of fit in that same narrative where they'll be on teams that are talented and they might be underperforming, the reason things aren't always working. But in Stuart's case, he can have really long stretches where things actually go really well for him. So for Edmonton, I just view them as being a team that is too good to be the worst team in the NHL by far. But also at the same time, understanding that they had a slow start last year and were able to turn things around. So is their season over? Absolutely not. Just one of those things where, again, it's a lot of ugly losses to kick off the year. And then you have the final team, which is the Nashville Predators. They are similar in some ways, like the Avs and the Oilers. They made the playoffs last year, as all 3 teams from this list did. However, their expectations were much lower last season, I think, compared to the other 2 teams, but they are geared up for a big year this year. They have had 2 losses that I actually don't think are that bad. They had a 4-3 loss to the Dallas Stars. That's understandable. A 3-0 loss to the Red Wings, getting shut out by them. Kind of weird because Detroit is a lot better than what people probably remember in recent years, but still not ideal. But I think that we understood, at least from what I thought, this team might take a minute to gel. They've got a lot of new faces. Yusei Saros is returning from an injury, so we'll see how long it takes him to come back and get from there. But in general, I don't think there's a real need to panic yet. So Stamkos is somebody that I'm going to be watching during this run, of course. Early on in the year, he is pointless 2 games in. He's got a lot of power play time, and in general, I'm not too worried about that. And I think that while the team is 1 for 9 on the power play, they've managed to generate a lot of chances. They're just trying to find the back of the net. It's very early in the season, and for a team that was nearly a side that was able to crack 100 points last year, I could not see them really being a terrible team. They may miss the playoffs. That would be kind of shocking considering that they set the expectations for themselves pretty high. But early in the year, for a side like this that has been a regular playoff team and organization for a really long time, I'm not saying that this is going to be the time to sound the alarms, because it really isn't for any of these 3 teams. So I know if you made it to this point, you're probably thinking maybe I wasted your time a little bit talking about how none of these teams have anything to worry about. In a way that is true, but I think in the same way we can look at these losses and say they are very concerning. And while you can always make excuses for losses, the reality is a lot of times these are points you're not getting. In all 3 teams' cases, they weren't able to get any points. So while they will probably be okay at the end of the year, we might see something where they go on to play another team that finishes higher in the standings and they win, thanks to partially home ice being that kind of difference maker, if you will. So I do want to talk about some other teams as well, maybe during the course of the week, that are outperforming expectations. But looking at three teams especially, I think that you're probably wondering exactly how things will play out. And in the case for teams like Nashville and then Colorado, they kind of feel like they are in a race where they either weren't able to start or the other person was able to get a head start in this case, because Dallas and Winnipeg are undefeated at the moment. So they are small things, but when you look at it in the broad scheme of things, they could be big things. And looking at all this too, especially with some divisions that could feature some very, very good teams, it's worth talking about. So anyway, what are your thoughts on these three teams? Do you think all three will be able to go on to the playoffs? Do you think there should be major concerns for things like, the problem in net for Colorado, maybe situation with Skinner in Edmonton, or just finding it odd that Nashville's been able to get so much time on the man advantage but not be able to score multiple goals in that time? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you can love hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.